Hi, I'm Dr. Neha. I'm an engineer, an internal medicine physician, and an executive coach who loves bridging the science of medicine with the art of communication to help you live your best life. So today I want to talk about humor. I want to talk about the role that humor plays in our lives, in our relationships, and how it connects us or sometimes can divide us. You know, in my life, I had a lot of heaviness early in my life. You know, I lost my favorite uncle and I lived with my grandparents for a while. And so there was a lot of shifting. And that kind of made me a pretty serious child. And the way I escaped and coped with it all was I got really academic and really athletic. So I became a tennis player. I loved math and science, hence the engineering and the doctor. And I wasn't so playful. And now I realize that when I'm around kids, they actually give me permission to play. So I have a niece and a nephew. I love other people's kids as well. I don't have any of my own. But I always notice that when I'm with them, boy, I slip right into kid mode and playing. So I want you to think for a moment about who and what environments in your life give you permission to play. Speaking of kids, I remember when I was teaching 8-year-olds how to connect what they eat to how they feel. And one of them, raised their hand and is like, Neha, and asked me a question. And I said, wait, before you ask me that question, I want to know, how can you say my name so perfectly? My name is spelled N-E-H-A. And so a lot of people say Neha. And this little one says, well, Peter told us that you're the laughing horse, Neha. And so we all know your name. And so I remember thinking, like, how clever, how creative. How many times are you in a social setting and you're like, what was your name again? What was your name? And you're like going through it all, right? So just making up little fun, funny ways to remember people's names. We all started laughing. And I also remember Kathy, one of my dear friends, Kathy. She's a nurse, and she was a nursing leader for many years, running emergency departments and operating rooms, right? And so our lives as healthcare workers is often in scrubs. We're often, there for extended hours. And so her mom was visiting, and her mom's name's Nancy. And she's in her 80s, and she grew up in Southern California, and she worked in a plastic surgeon's office for many years. And to say that aesthetics is important to her would be an understatement. And so Kathy was late for work one morning, and she, threw on her scrubs, and she hadn't put her makeup on, she hadn't put her hair up or anything, and or really gotten ready. And she was running out the door, and her mom was like, Kathy, where are you going? Like, you gotta get ready. And she's like, Mom, it's just work. Like, don't worry about it. And her mom answered with, you know what the problem with you is, Kathy? That you only care about what's on the inside. And so Kathy, I got a phone call, of course, on the way to work, because what could really be hurtful to one person, right? If you connect with someone else who shares your values. Her and I just laughed all the way to work. And by the time she got there, she's like, you know what, Nay, I'm so glad I got to laugh with you, because otherwise I would have been really offended. So who shares your sense of humor? First of all, you want to ask yourself, like, how do you use humor? What's the role that humor plays? And what type of humor do you have, right? Are you the person who just takes like everyday life experiences and can see the humor in what it is to be a human on Earth? Are you someone who uses humor to deflect discomfort or vulnerability? Or are you somebody, who's got good pickup lines, right? Are you someone who uses humor at times like a funeral or when things are heavy to kind of break things up and lighten the mood? How do you use humor? So I think I remember interviewing Sean, who was a CEO in the Silicon Valley, and he was saying to me that, whenever people challenge him, which they don't do very much, but because of his positional power in the company, but he said whenever they do, he found himself, like whenever he felt vulnerable, just kind of cracking a joke to kind of lighten things up. And he wanted to know why that was. And so I just asked him, pay attention to getting uncomfortable in your body and notice that you can just name that rather than cracking a joke and kind of deflecting it. And so there's all sorts of ways that you can use humor to connect to other people. You just want to make sure it's in a really healthy way and it's in a way that really serves you. So what are the ways that you use humor in your life? I'd love you to think about it and write below. I can't wait to hear. And tell me a joke or two.